So don't hesitate to throw things at me. Questions primarily, hopefully, but but as you see a spot where you think you want to push a question in there, please do. So the second half, after I sort of get finished giving the background information, we might then brainstorm a bit, talk about some of the specific points of focus and points of planning that you might be ready to launch into and get going with. So that's the overall plan. So as promised, here is the background. Massachusetts College of Liberal Arts. We are a small, bucolic, New Englandy public liberal arts college, residential. Our profile is small. So we have 1,500 undergrads, plus a couple of hundred graduate students. Public liberal arts college, as I said, residential. And we started using Canvas in 2011. So we have actually been on that platform for a long time in Canvas years, since they are a relatively new platform. So back in the day, back in 2012, actually, we were going along using Canvas as a learning management system, as most colleges and universities do, when we saw something come out as a new feature. There was this scheduler tool that came out associated with the calendar feature. And as most really good ideas do, one of our faculty members came up with this idea and said, hey, given this new scheduler tool, I can see how that would be perfect for managing my advising, right? My meetings with my advisees. And having that really be smooth, having it be integrated into an existing platform where students are already every day, rather than throwing one more platform at them, or rather than the sign-up sheet on the office door. Yes, our faculty do paper sheets on the office door for sign-ups, right? With all of the inefficiencies that entails, right? So we said, yeah, let's do it. Let's try it. Anyway, we're big on pilots. We're big on pilot programs. And so we decided, hey, let's do an advising with Canvas pilot. We had a little bit of financial support from the Davis Foundation, which is a private foundation that we write grants to. And so we articulated three particular goals to support faculty advisors. First, we wanted to see whether this project would simply increase the total interactions between advisors and advisees. You know, one sort of anecdotal shortcoming of the advising relationship and this came out of faculty's own mouths, that advisees typically only come to their office when they need the PIN number in order to sign up online for their next semester's courses. That a lot of times constituted the sum total of the advising relationship. And we didn't want that to be true. We wanted advising to be everything, a much deeper and richer relationship. So that was, simply an easy metric that we could try and track and measure, sheer number increase. Secondly, sort of the qualitative, we wanted to make this advising relationship sustained and intentional rather than periodic and reactive. And thirdly, we wanted to help the advisors. We wanted to have them have to manage less paperwork, bureaucracy, juggling of schedules, and students coming in for a meeting, not having, done the flow sheets to prep them for actually having a deep conversation when they got there. We were optimistic and thought that these three represented plausible, realistic outcomes that we could potentially get from this project. So, stage one in the 2014 academic year, we had 7 faculty advisors decide that they wanted to participate in this and try it out. Among them, they had 276 student advisees. You see that they represented a fairly good range of disciplines here. And I was in there too, in terms of support. As mentioned, I'm academic technology, and so my role was to offer support in all sorts of ways to these faculty. Well, it went well, and I'll talk a little bit about what that means specifically as we go. Just to give you a sense of growth, this was the first 2 semesters of the pilot. We did it for 4 semesters total, 2 academic years. And so stage 2, to did I? Nope, academic year 2013, 2014, my bad. Should have been 13, 14. We added some more faculty. And the growth here was not at all due to anything I did. I try to get word out about cool things from my point of view, but you know, you're probably well aware that the most effective means of spreading word among faculty is for fellow faculty members to share what they're doing and get their peers excited. And that's exactly what happened here. So from 7, we grew to 28 total faculty. Looped in a few more disciplines and majors and programs, and there I was still there supporting now 28 of our faculty and 827 of our undergrads. So this is just giving you a sense of, over the course of 4 semesters, where we ended up in terms of total numbers. Towards the end of my slide set, I'll also be showing you some more growth since I put this together. So 28 of 85 full-time faculty advisors at our college at this point participating. So as faculty decided to participate and make it their own, a few sort of key ideas and intentions arose out of it. So we started off simply making contact. So just a few examples of faculty advisors doing outreach, you know, meeting, putting a face literally to the name of advisor, right? For a lot of our incoming first-year freshmen, this is a big deal. This is a huge deal, right? For a faculty member to unprompted reach out to you, right, as a first semester freshman, is a really powerful thing, right? To have it be something more than a form letter, right? To have it be something outside of a required course, right? So sure, faculty are going to communicate to you because you're in their course, right? They're going to talk about the curriculum and so forth. But to have an announcement or a welcoming page or something like that, just because you're here and we want you to be here, that's powerful, right? So that's something that these participants decided was worthwhile and worth noting as part of this project. Another big thing, all right, is for incoming students to start developing a sense of what they are doing in college intentionally. Again, I'm sure I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, but we saw that a fair number of our students are coming in without a focus, right? Without truly understanding that there is a sort of intentionality to taking classes, right? Beyond the semester at hand, right? Beyond completing the requirements for the major. So something that a lot of our faculty advisors decided to do was to basically show that, to model in their Canvas course advising spaces, the idea that you're going to start thinking long-term. You're going to start thinking in a sort of overarching arc towards the future, towards graduation. Certainly that's a big ask for an incoming freshman, but to have that be on their radar from the beginning, right? To realize that there is a process, and over time you will sort of start to absorb that and see the value of that. And whether, again, some faculty decided to do it visually in terms of, designing pages with, with arresting graphics, or whether they decided to use the modules feature, right, to sort of do it more structurally in the LMS. We saw it happen in lots of different ways. We didn't necessarily impose a particular model that we recommended. We let faculty talk among themselves and figure out the best way. And that usually is the best way. Planning. Here's a great example of one of our faculty in political science who created a choose your own adventure, essentially, gave the advisors, gave his advisees not simply a set of pages to read or a set of PDFs to read and to sort of sort through on their own to decide, what they're going to pay attention to, but decided to put the time, invest the time in to design a branching sequence based upon, well, who am I as an advisee? What's my year, right? What are the things that are going to be important for me? Right? And so in each case, he articulated some basic requirements and then some things to think about if you're ready to start thinking beyond the basics, right? So for freshmen, for sophomores, for juniors, for seniors. I just want to pause and make the point here that, as I said, a lot of this happened in the context of a small residential college. but you're probably already thinking that there's nothing necessarily about that makes this work, right? So a lot of this can easily translate into other models that aren't necessarily residential, aren't necessarily face-to-face. I know there are a lot of institutions that are, have a lot of online advising, right? So this could be something that matches that model as well. What about the scheduler, right? Which was the impetus for this whole thing from the beginning. So faculty were initially very, very excited about using a scheduler with their advisees, sent out announcements, and we, one of the things that I did was put together documentation to help students, figure out how to use scheduler, because we found that the native Canvas documentation was not particularly adequate at that stage. And we got some feedback from the advisors. Here's one example: really appreciated using Canvas for advising, but the scheduler is pretty inflexible, all right, not super intuitive. Would have been nice to be able to modify some things in scheduler. Once you've locked in an appointment group, you're sort of locked out of editing some things. One of our faculty advisors sent an announcement to her advisees at a certain point, shouting, "The scheduler in Canvas hates me." And so what can you do? It turns out that the scheduler, which launched this idea, turned out not to be so great in our experience as a tool. So it goes. All right, that's definitely something we learned, and that's something that we've not come up with a solution that everybody likes at this point. Some of our faculty are still using the native Canvas scheduler and some are not. But what I think is interesting is that regardless of that, that didn't torpedo the project, right? Faculty dove in, continue to find other things that, sort of sustained their interest and sustained the value of the project beyond the initial, what they initially thought would be important. Very boring, but kind of a mainstay of the advising relationship is for students to complete flow sheets, share that information to their advisors, to build out that sense of what's appropriate to take in any given semester. What many of our faculty decided to do was to use assignments for this, right? So not really assignments as such, although some did decide to assign some arbitrary point value, I remember there was a biology professor who decided to make it worth 1,000 points to submit your flow sheet before meeting with him. Students seemed to love it. He reported that he got a very high response rate to that. Something to, I don't know, points, gamification. I know we've got some gamification talk coming up later on today. So, but yeah, so simply setting up an assignment, not in the way we normally think about it, but simply as the best mechanism in Canvas through which to carry on this back and forth conversation. So simply to provide some instructions on the sheet itself, the blank sheet, to collect it from students. And as we're seeing here in these next couple shots of the speed grader, this is where conversations happened about the flow sheet. And this is what excited a fair number of our advisors. Yes, before our meetings, all right, you give me your flow sheet filled out. Then I give you some feedback, right? Then we carry on the conversation, right? Over here in the comments section, we meet, right? Even afterwards, then, all right, when we decide something in our face-to-face meeting, right? Faculty would then send back a revised version as an attached comment, right? As a revised version of that assignment. So this has turned out to be something very exciting to our faculty advisors, sort of rethinking the tool, the assignments tool itself, repurposing it. Most of our faculty don't assign a due date to it, or they assign a due date and then change it. We'll talk a little bit about some of the time constraints and the ways that these Canvas advising courses would be structured in terms of terms. Because that'll be something interesting if you're going to move forward. You might think about where these are going to reside in the Canvas infrastructure in terms of terms and sub-accounts and that kind of thing. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Sorry. All right. So Other important things, simply curating resources, right? So discipline-specific, major-specific documents, web resources, you know, this is pretty straightforward, I think. This is the kind of thing you would do anyway, I'm guessing, collecting and providing these sorts of resources. But again, you know, there's something to the idea of having it exist within the same ecosystem, the same electronic ecosystem where students already are. Every semester, more than 95% of our students are in Canvas, right, on a regular basis. So it just makes sense to have these things living here rather than off on yet another website, right? That may be less navigable, right? That was certainly an issue with our college website. You know, we had issues with students finding particular resources on the website, whereas if advisors are curating the necessary resources, right, appropriate to their specific set of students, you've got a lot more focus and a lot more rate of success. And again, whether it's on pages with documents embedded, whether it's using the modules, we used you know, a plug-in LTI tool in Canvas to give easy access to our students to log into Banner, our student information system, from directly within Canvas. So again, just pulling together sort of a relevant basket of resources around advising. Departments would embed, you know, their own department pages if they wanted to. We have a few issues, you know, if you've probably noticed, if you're using non-secure web addresses now in Canvas, you're going to get those error messages. But hey, if your website is on HTTPS, you're golden at this point. So, and then this was a big one for our advisors, for our advisees. This set of forms, right, the very common forms that students are always looking for, the add drop form, the withdrawal form, the internship forms. This is a perfect example of one of those resource sets that was buried, you know, 7 or 8 clicks in on, I don't even know what department or web page in our college this was in. So rather than reinventing the wheel, having faculty, and we did have faculty advisors who would download the PDF copies of these documents and keep them on a flash drive in their office, and when students asked for them, print them out a copy. Embedding these, this is the web page, right? This is simply embedded in an iframe in this Canvas page. And here they are. If they should change, they'll change here and everywhere. So just nothing earth-shattering, but definitely a way to save time, to save effort, right? To not have things as scattered. So, you know, the traditional methods for advisors to communicate opportunities to their advisees, right? Because that's been a thing that we've always wanted to do, is say, hey, internships, hey, summer work, hey, you know, all these sorts of things. So certainly, you know, we haven't given up on the physical bulletin boards or even on the email listservs. But again, you know, we've had our faculty advisors tell us, look, it is so freaking easy to send an announcement, right? My advisees are deciding for themselves whether they want to get text messages or emails or whatever, right? So we're not dealing with the perennial problem of, oh, students don't check their email anymore, you know? Fine, so if students have decided they want to get text messages out of Canvas, they're getting text messages, and they're getting text messages about these internships and opportunities. So, and these are just a few examples. You know, we happen to be really fortunate. We live in a little corner of the world where, you know, we've got a pretty good selection of opportunities around the arts, particularly in our part of the state. So our fine and performing arts, our arts management programs, they really like to go to town and you know, communicate these opportunities out, mostly through announcements, frankly. It's drop dead easy, and students read them. What more can you want? One of the cool things that I never would have anticipated, didn't anticipate, but came back from faculty's experience, was that students themselves sort of looped back, and started to share to other students resources and opportunities. So, and I apologize, I should have blown these up a little bit bigger so that you could see them. But these are some examples in an education class, in psychology, I'm sorry, not class, an education faculty advisor, a psychology advisor, and who is this? Oh, biology again, biology, they're everywhere. Discussions in which recently graduated students who are part of this advising, set, or senior advisees, posting and saying, hey, for instance, anybody interested in veterinary school? I've got some resources, right? I'm in the interview process right now. I've got a lot of materials. I'm just going to leave them in the biology department in this office. Let me know if you want to talk about it. Amazing, right? This is a great way to. It's not all driven by us, right? Which is a wonderful epiphany sometimes, that students, given an opportunity, given a platform, can actually start to cycle back and help each other out in these kind of important ways. Alumni contacts, right? So alumni who graduated reach out to this advisor and said, hey, share our information with your advisees. How easy, right? So rather than sending out a bunch of emails, here it is, right? You want to reach out to this this alumnus? Go for it, do it. So this kind of thing was utterly unexpected and delightful. That came out of faculty reports about this. So more issues. I'm getting into the weeds here a little bit, just trying to articulate some of the key takeaways that advisors reported back to me in terms of what they saw as being valuable for this project, right? So the ability to really sit down, write up, right, the kind of advice they always give, right, one by one by one. But to have it here to share, available to all equally in a place that it'll be found, it'll be read, the nuts and bolts of getting ready to graduate, right? These are exactly the deeper sorts of conversations that we want advising to mean and to constitute. So what about numbers, right? We always want to see numbers. Okay, so we did some analysis, and most of this was initially just driven by looking at the Canvas analytics. We had created all of our advising courses in a particular sub-account, so it was very easy to track analytics on that sub-account. So we saw a rising trend just in baseline participations per month. Okay, so you're probably well aware that participations is one thing and page views is the other, right, in Canvas Analytics Lab. So participations, a student has submitted an assignment or participated in a discussion, fundamentally, right? Or taken a quiz, I guess, but nobody really did quizzes with advising. Whether you're talking participations or page views, both of them had an increase in terms of the trend line. Like I said, they're small absolute numbers. We're an absolutely small college. So I think that's all right. I think that the direction was encouraging. We didn't see immediate amazing differences, but what we thought was really telling was that there was sort of this constant low grade checking in that was happening month to month to month to month, right? Harkening back to one of those first few slides where we articulated the three goals, right, that we set for the program. One of them was to increase participation, sustained participation, right, rather than this periodic reactive participation. And this showed us that that was starting to happen, right? That's what we read this. We see, look, there is sustainment. That's a word, right? There's a trend towards checking in. Oh, I wonder, maybe I just want to find, that embedded iframe of the forms. Maybe that's all I'm going in for. But I'm going in, right? I am seeing my advising environment as somewhere that I can go when I need it for what I need. So that's encouraging to be able to spot stuff like that. Just some more stats, I don't know, not really analyzed, but giving a more visual view from the Canvas analytics, growth from the beginning of the project to the end of the project, both in terms of the participations and the page views. And what some of our switching gears, what some of our administrators are particularly interested in pursuing is the idea that participating in this program might have some kind of measurable impact on retention rates. That is a big deal. As with many colleges, we are not happy with our current rates of retention. We can see that they should be better, right? And we're trying to figure out what are effective ways to do it. Very preliminary data, right? And the usual caveats about correlation not implying causation, but what we saw is at least promising, and is at least something that makes us think, oh, we should pursue this maybe for a couple of more semesters, see if there's some kind of continuing trend here. Because looking at some of these, what we see is that in this cohort, this first cohort of new first-time full-time freshmen in the incoming 2013 semester, among those small number whose advisors participated in this pilot, we had a 100% retention rate, contrasted with 75% of those which did not, contrasted with 78 overall. And again, when your N is small, there's only so much you can infer, statistically speaking, but we want to keep doing it because if there's anything to this correlation, at the very least, it's worth pursuing further, just because at this stage, the grant is over. We're no longer being grant funded in the pilot, but that barely matters because the faculty buy-in is so high that those initial 28 who were participating through the grant funding have essentially proselytized. So one of the things that we're seeing is we have an annual Tech Fest conference end of May. That's a day-long faculty-driven technology professional development day. And so we had some of these participants share their experiences to their colleagues at Tech Fest in a session. Coming off that, we're starting to see not just faculty advisors, but also staff advisors, right? We have a Center for Student Success and Engagement, CESE, whose task it is to be supportive around advising in all sorts of ways. And we're starting to see that CESE is also getting involved, right? So for particular at-risk student populations, students who don't yet have a major advisor who are undeclared, for example, other things like that, they're starting to get in on this and use it, hopefully to good effect. We'll see, time will tell. So that brings me sort of to the end of my run-up, right? So that's the background. That's what happened at MCLA. So in terms of throw stuff at me, start it off, sure.
Well, so it is as you mentioned, how they do they see sort of
students do not get any instruction. You do not have the staff to provide that. We have a wonderful help desk staff, which is largely student workers and who are primarily hardware and connectivity problem solvers. So we do not have the resources to offer that degree of student support and training around Canvas. I dearly wish we did. Sure, please.
Because we do have providers. All students here are able to, and one of the things that orientation progressive is managing those. Once they have set up their education, they are consistent in every course or every shell that they're involved in. So
what is our strategy? Because students that I tell about that are like, oh, cool.
yeah. I don't know that we have a formal strategy for how to control that. They get put into it to show them on their spot, or they get a notification. And then when I recall something pretty obvious. Yeah.
All right. No, this is good. This is good.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that
would certainly figure out how to use things for one.
Right, right, yeah. That's something we think about a lot, and you know, we're constantly bumping up against the limitation of resources, and so we're always trying to be creative. Frankly, most of our students learn how to use Canvas because they take courses that are using Canvas, and so, and yeah, and it's piecemeal, you know, and it sounds like some of your students encounter as well. So.
A year ago, right? That was when we pulled the plug on our previous. And so, and we're seeing, hopefully over time, we'll see, but back with Carolyn said, most of our students have been supposed to campus, the way, of course, through at a class.
So, I'm, you know, sitting down thinking about how I might be helpful to strategize, right, for you all launching one of these kinds of pilots. You know, these are three ideas that came to me as potential focal points for conversation or for launching and planning. So planning, where you know, and we're mostly faculty in the room? Is that my sense? Do we have no more mix? Oh, good. Okay, cool. That's actually good because I'm a hybrid myself. So I'm faculty and I'm also academic technology. So I straddle that line. So I hopefully I can talk to both populations, right, and get us thinking in collaborative ways. But so one more technical side of things is the business of enrollment management, right? So if I'm somebody can tell me if I'm correct in my assumption. Canvas courses are populated automatically via script from the SIS. Okay, so you'll just set up something very analogous, you know, for this particular sub account, maybe, probably. So that's what we did. We've got an advising sub account. And then term management, that's something to think about on the back side of it. Our answer to this was we just have all of our advising courses in default term. So there's never any time limit, and then, you know, advisees just roll in and out as the SIS updates. So I'm foreseeing that as probably the most sensible thing. But yeah.
So right now, that's advisors aren't static in that it's wrong. But part of our team don't have to, but we have 2 representatives by the house. And those are the kinds of things that are I think that's probably the way that a term will we be pushing automatically. I think that we're going to need a lot of all of you to know that it's feasible and effective.
Role management, I just threw up there as a possible. You know, we did not create a role of advisor in Canvas. We've just been using the default teacher role and student role. But, you know, if you want to sort of streamline the permissions about, you know, how advisors and advisees interact in one of these course spaces, right? You're probably aware that you can do that. You can build those custom roles potentially, if that makes sense, right? From our point of view, the cost benefit, you know, there was not much benefit to, you know, building out new roles because they're, in terms of what people will be doing in Canvas, it's so close enough, you know, it's close enough to the traditional teacher-student interactions that we were fine just using traditional teacher and student roles. But again, you know, something which may be a point of conversation among you. Yes. Yes,
Think about you. Or,
we did. We did think about using groups. We ultimately decided not to, largely because we wanted to, well, I should say, the faculty advisor participants in the pilot wanted to keep as many options open as possible. And it seemed like building courses gave them the whole panoply of tools to play with, you know, assignments and discussions and quizzes, and they didn't know that they were going to use them all, but they wanted to, you know, keep the options open. And,
This is other, what we call groups.
oh,
And so we have a sub count of groups, but we're using courses and we're planning them as groups. Our groups have all of the functionality of courses. In fact, they're mechanical courses. They're all the same tools. They're all the same story.
okay.
They're just non-academic courses as opposed to academic.
if that is fine. I have, and so they were invited. So are we talking about?
And I think that's a really open question. At the end, I think we're going to need a lot of feedback from you as well as and what makes should be. I don't know what they'll be but include outside members. Yeah, so these questions are so helpful. We're looking at you guys. We know how the tool works, but we don't know about what advisory. So these are questions that you know that as we get together in the conversation with forward, and keep eye on you that keep these questions.
And that's what I said, you know, when we were doing this. That really is, and it was ridiculously helpful when my faculty colleagues took me seriously when I, you know, asked for the feedback. And at the, you know, in the startup phase, absolutely yes, and ongoing. You know, one of the things that I really appreciated was the fact that things came up sort of in medias res, you know, in the middle of the semester, when the first time that they were doing this and registration week came up, and suddenly they were flooded with, you know, all of their advisees coming to talk to them, and the scheduler crashed, and, you know, any of these sorts of issues, or they suddenly realized, oh, you know what, the banner, you know, the student information system redirect tool is not working for some reason. Oh, we forgot to change the setting, right? The ongoing iterative feedback. Don't ever forget, you know, please. We love the iterative feedback, not just the startup feedback. I think I can speak for y'all when I say that, right? Cool. Touched on already, right, the idea that sometimes students will switch advisors unexpectedly, and so what's the best way that, you know, you'll want to handle that technically, whether it'll be manually drop ads, if that's something that faculty have permissions to do in your instance. Again, something to think about. You know, drop ads in courses is very limited. Once drop ads done, you don't have to worry about that anymore. In our experience anyway, I don't know if we're especially permissive, but students can switch majors and switch advisors pretty much anytime. And it's really good to have a procedure in place so that you don't have long lag times. So, and then, you know, others, who knows what other particular needs are going to come up in your own conversations. You know, that I have no clue about coming from where I'm coming from. So just, you know, these are what I consider to be planning issues. First stage, you know, first stage, not really yet implementing, but getting ready to implement. The second big, you know, focus that I like to think about is design issues. All right, so when we are now when we've done our planning, when we're starting to design, what is the user experience going to be like, right? So this is to me fun, right? And, you know, instructional design is not necessarily a fun thing for everybody, but, you know, you've got colleagues for whom it probably is fun, and they'll be ready to work with you, you know. And so user experience, to me, something that I saw, and it was a joy to my heart when I saw, you know, faculty advisors doing this without, you know, without unprompted, just they just do it, right? You may think back, I don't know if you remember the screenshot I took of the political science advisors starting page with the, you know, the freshman, sophomore, junior, senior buttons, you know? Designing your Canvas course in such a way that the student comes in and right from the beginning has a sense of direction, has a sense of directionality, procedure, avoiding the go find it effect or the basket of random PDFs effect, as I sometimes think of it. You know, a lot of us are really, really good at knowing the content and knowing what content is important and putting it there. And then arranging it. Don't necessarily always think about that, but especially, you know, this is something that I think, and it's something that when I say this to faculty colleagues, they will say, yeah, okay, that makes sense. That incoming first-year students, again, if you give them a bunch of things to read, guidance is so critical, right? What should I read first and why, right? So thinking in that way, thinking that as I'm building, right, when I've created a page, right, how are students going to get to that page, right? Am I going to put little, you know, arrow links at the bottom, right, to link to those other pages? Not all of my, you know, colleagues that I work with think about issues like that, right? We'll create a bunch of pages, and they're awesome pages. They're very content-filled pages. This page has got really important readings about internships. This page has got really critical information about the major, right, and the prereqs. Just don't stop at that point and think, okay, I'm done. I've given them the page with the prereqs, right? Doing this design work really, really matters. Content management, all right? Content is one piece, a critical piece, right? Maintaining, all right? I'm not telling you anything new. Documents change and get updated. Links change and get updated. Maintaining it, right? So if you're going to do this, right, this is one more Canvas course space you're maintaining, you know, as an advisor, in addition to the ones you're teaching. So, you know, and it's one that persists from year to year. So the odds are good that it makes sense for you once in a while to go in there and double check, make sure everything still is where you remember it being. Visibility, and this can mean a bunch of different things. This means managing visibility such that older stuff slides off of students' radar. It means that, you know, simply the basics around Canvas, creating content, making sure it's published and visible, and making sure that even if it's published and visible, that it's linked from somewhere that makes sense, right? Embedding existing content, again, not reinventing the wheel, and I touched on this already a bunch of times, so I'm not going to belabor the point. You know, resources that already exist on your webpage, grab them, frame them, get done, right? Beyond content, though, right? I love, and probably my colleagues hate, the fact that I use the word environment and ecosystem all the time. It's probably my most overused terms to describe a Canvas course. I almost never refer to it in conversation as a course, like Canvas space, Canvas environment, you know? Because I place a lot of weight on the idea that it is a place where students are going to come and do stuff with you. And so it's not just a library, you know, it's not a set of documents to sit there for them to pick up and look at. I think of it as a space, right? And so what kind of activities are going to be? Certainly I talked about the assignments, right, in terms of the nuts and bolts, and the flow sheets, but, you know, discussion forums, announcements, generating these kinds of conversations among alumni and, you know, upper division advisees, and the possibilities are really broad, let's put it that way. As always, considerations around accessibility, okay? And that's always a tough one. Our work is never done around making sure that our online stuff is accessible, but certainly it's always worth mentioning. And future-proofing your content, this is an issue that I will admit it, I have a bias against PDF as a document format, just because it's so ridiculously hard to update. You know, so I like to encourage folks that I work with to, at the very least, use Microsoft Word or some more easily editable document format. Ideally, everybody would write in HTML, right? But that's not going to happen. So, but you know, it's a pain point with my colleagues who have crafted a wonderful document, saved it as a PDF, put it up, look at it, and realize, oh, there is a ridiculously glaring error, and I need to go back and redo and waste a lot of time. So again, thinking forwards, so these are not particular issues around just designing advising spaces, but anything. And then planning out the feedback loops, right? You know, we've heard a lot about the value of data and analytics, not just for generating reports, although some days it may seem like that's really what it's all about, is generating reports. But, you know, the idea that we will take some of what we're observing about student behaviors and use it to craft iteratively what we're doing in the moment, in the term. Right? These are exciting ideas, and they're things that can drive our design. And again, others, I don't know. I'm sure there are a million things that I missed and that you will in your conversations pick up on. And that's cool. Execution. Right. When we're finally ready to engage. Presence, online presence, right? And this harks back to what I said earlier about the environment, right? We got to be there. You know, we have to be there if we want our students to be there. Presence. Presence. We always want to ask this, right, to drive our question. Why should advisees spend time in this space? And we have a ton of answers. We have a ton of really good answers to that question, right? To sort of get themselves oriented, to get them on the right track, to keep them on the right track, to make sure that they're not wasting time, money, efforts, right, duplicating courses, you know, to start early thinking about their professional, you know, career after the fact. All of these are absolutely the right sorts of answers, and we all know these answers to this question. What about this question, right? Because the second question is often, I don't know if I want to say just as powerful to drive what happens in your Canvas advising space, but maybe I do want to say that, right? You may know that students sometimes have all the good reasons in the world to do a thing, but if they are not motivated to do the thing, they're not going to do the thing, right? And we can browbeat and you know, incentivize with extrinsic, you know, motivations like points or grades, but ultimately, right, some of those are not going to be as effective in a non-course, right? If this is not a credit-bearing, grade-bearing environment, a lot of our traditional extrinsic motivators are a lot less effective to get students to be in here doing stuff. Right? So then what do we have, right? Again, why do they want to be here in this Canvas advising course space or group or whatever it is, right? That's something you want to try to answer, I would bet, collectively, individually. All right, so this is my final slide in this deck. And this URL is something, if you care to jot it down, this is just our bare bones advising template that we created. And it is very bare bones. It just, you know, presents a very minimalist structure to how an advising course might look. Some generic pages, like a frequently asked questions page. And if you click to it, it says like ABC major, bullet point, fill in the rest. Yeah. But, you know, it can be perhaps an interesting jumping off point for some of your conversations and planning sessions. Yeah.
Just real quickly, maybe you already mentioned it, but these advisor sites, are they individual faculty who then can add students, or are they team sites with departments? Do you have a combination of two, and which one works better?
Oh, what a wonderful question. So there's a story here. By and large, these are individual faculty advisors sites. They manage themselves. Let me just say about enrollments. we set up our Canvas instance such that enrollments are automatic via Banner. So our faculty do not have that level of access to manually add or students. But that having been said, most of them are individual faculty advisors or staff advisors now. We're starting to get. We did have one case of, we had 5 biology professors who wanted to do a collective advising departmental course space. And I thought, oh, how cool, let's do it. Let's see what happens. And it started off good. When they started to try using Scheduler, things basically exploded on them. They ended up with a lot of very weird, well, for one thing, all of the faculty, so all 5 of the faculty advisors started getting overwhelmed by notifications about course events. There were weird things that I never quite resolved within structure about access to each other's appointment groups in Scheduler. So one faculty advisor would create an appointment group for her own advisees. That would become visible to all of the advisees in biology. And then nobody would be able to sign up for anything. So it was useless in multiple dimensions. And at the end of it, one smart thing that I did, luckily, I guess, before they merged, because they had started off individual, they wanted me to merge them, so I merged. Before that, though, I made sure to keep the individual shells in case we needed to roll it back. And so after not quite a semester, no, just over a semester, they came and said, roll it back. I said, we can do that. So now they're back to individual advising course spaces, with one exception. They wanted to keep the collective biology Canvas course and have their own individuals also, so that, you know, John, Jane, Joe, Mary, and Sue, right? Each of whom has a different biology advisor. Each of them is enrolled in the appropriate individual advisors Canvas space, and is also, all 5 of them are also enrolled in the biology shared space. And they, you know, those faculty members are, you know, linking back and forth to the main biology shared space. They're individuals.
For one environment without any differentiation? Or did you
We use sections.
you use sections and you still had those problems?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It was frustrating.
So,
Uh-huh.
there is So, what were the other fixes?
Okay, so let me think. So like I said, some have continued working with Scheduler in spite of its limitations. Some have simply, you know, embedded a Google form and used that. Some have gone to, what is it, Doodle polls, using that tool. Some are using email, you know, asking advisees to email them. We don't have those are just some of the individual choices that people have been making. We don't have a coherent strategy overall to deal with that issue yet.
How you could
Yeah.
Question. I was looking for some of the measurable for campus.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, that's the ultimate. But have you surveyed the students as well, just to kind of get their feedback?
That is in the works. We had not, as part of that initial, pilot stage. Would have been nice to do, but we didn't. Yeah, well, but we recognize that would be very valuable, and we're working in that direction. So certainly, if you're in a position to get that built right from the get-go, by all means, get that qualitative student feedback. Our focus is primarily the advisor feedback, but if you can get both, get both.
There is the action like department.
All right. Well, so it sounds like you've got a lot to talk about, which is good. And like I said, well, here's my contact information. You basically tapped my brain after today. I don't know that I would necessarily have anything more to contribute to you at this point. But if you think there's a question that you want to throw at me, I'd be very happy to, to follow up and share my thoughts on some of this stuff. So.
Were your students in
Yeah. We actually did it manually. Well, not quite manually. Sort of auto-manually, meaning that we went to our middleware guy and said, hey, run a script, to pull these lists out of Banner and pop them into Canvas, and he did. But drops and ads we had to manage manually, just so John wouldn't, start throwing things at us, pestering him all the time with that. So, yeah. Mm. We did not. So when I talk about academic technology, mostly I mean myself and my one part-time colleague. So there were a bunch of things that we couldn't manage to do. Also, our faculty are very DIY in a lot of ways, and so they're less inclined to look to academic technology to sort of provide content. And so, for those reasons, didn't. However, it's just similar along those lines. In cases where we had multiple advisors in the same program, like biology, like ultimately now psychology is like this for us, and a couple of other majors. We do have sort of the first faculty member in who built out a lot of original stuff, then by default sort of turns into the repository for their own specific major colleagues. Since we've just gotten on board with the Canvas Commons, that's ultimately going to be probably the place where that content is going to be managed and stored and made available. Right. Right, exactly. Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's ridiculously helpful. All right. Well, I guess we're done early. Cool. Oh, sure.
Everybody in this, but I can imagine and whoa.
Yeah.
That's one more thing I have to do, and that's get that.
Oh yeah, totally. I don't know if I have any particularly useful advice or anything like that. I mean, our pilot was opt-in. It was very much a self-selecting group, as it looks like you all are too. And since that ended, as I said, there was a lot of evangelism from those faculty members to their colleagues. And the persuasion happens faculty to faculty. So the next generation who came in had an interest because they were convinced in some way by one of their colleagues to give it a try. Quite frankly, you know, I totally did not include in all of my lovely slides the feedback from faculty who participated, who ended up saying things like, well, you know, I could see the value in it, but not for me. We had a small number of our faculty advisors who ultimately said, our program is just so diverse that there's no particular advantage to sort of trying to build a shared set of resources, like our interdisciplinary studies program, for example. They told us, you know, we have just so many varieties that we don't see any overall value in trying to set up a baseline. And so I said, okay, fine. You know, it's not my place to sort of, you know, make that judgment. I know that we have faculty who really, as far as I can see, probably will not ever be interested in doing something like this. That's fine. I end up I have nothing to say at that point because they're doing things their way. And, you know, I don't know, that's cool. We're definitely not in any position, and we don't have an interest in trying to lure people in kicking and screaming. You know, isn't that the job of administration? No, I'm kidding. But no, we very much operate on the opt-in principle, and we live with the, you know, we have acknowledged the fact that we're not going to get everybody, and we're okay. You know, those who are doing it are doing it because they want to be. It's kind of like how we hope we are teaching. You know, people taking our classes who want to be taking them or something like that. Oh, I'm filling time. I really have nothing more of content to say.
For those of you, I know there's some people that are not actually in the pilot. But for those of you who are in the pilot, trying to get a plan here forward is a lot of these questions that are at the bottom. Right? I'm going to try to answer them. As Meg said, Meg and I are experts on the tool. We are not experts on the guide, which is why you are here with us. We don't know what you're fighting areas. So we're going to try to work through it. And you know, maybe come up with ideas of how to come up with what people understand space and might like access to. That's the kind of stuff we can do. And maybe some procedures. So that if I'm in fact not part of this group, I can go to this procedures and say, oh, if I want to do this, here's what I do. Finding procedures on whether or not we want our students putting automatically or not. You know, I mean, that's stuff. Don't have public case over here and Bill, I've run into you multiple times, so I know where you're from, but who are in the unit scenario as the secondary advisor. So a whole other level of, you know, what are we going to do with that, right? And not the primary advisor, but the secondary advisor. So, you know, there's a lot of that. So what we're hoping to do then is as you take this information, that, you know, there's a lot of information, there's a lot of good ideas, take this information back with you. We're going to try to have a meeting pretty quickly so we don't hit everything. And start our planning, right? Figure out where we're going to go and what makes the most sense. You have an interest in kind of professional advisors, kind of, right? And our faculty almost half and half on that. Actually, when we set people started accepting in the career because we thought that didn't have to always, maybe make this group together and this group together. So we thought that might work out. Not that there's not a total amount of value to the cross itself, but also I think that we stuff like that. You have hundreds of values and you know, try to mix that conversation. So I think that's what we're going. If you have any questions about that process or anything else, Carol. Yeah, go ahead, please.
If you just
Yes, you do. They're one of the groups that came in, sort of having seen the pilot run through the 4 semesters and hear the feedback from faculty at TechFest. Then they came over and said, "Hey, all right, we're convinced. We're going to do this." And so yes, they have since built out a course like that, you know, one of these spaces, and are using it. Yes. Mhm. 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 Then 5 academic courses. Right? Yeah. We have not encountered that simply because of our size and because frankly we're still in the early stages. I bet we will though. I bet we will have to address that question at some point. We haven't yet, and so I don't know if we're simply whistling past the graveyard or what, but that's something important for me to take back and make sure I don't lose off of my radar. So thank you for that.
Right. We reported about a lot of technical issues to start with, but we have the last part of it. So there's quite a few that are not actually. Fine.
Yeah.
Are counted on this. We have a little trouble until it's happened. So good now. So if you have any questions, let us know. And I think we're going to start developing the stuff. We're going to build it. It's our job. All right. Thank you guys for coming. Thank you, Gerald.